welcome to B Shifter. John Vance, Josh Blum. Welcome to the program today, and we are going to be talking about air management in just a few minutes because that's the topic of the week. But first of all, just want to remind everybody that the Hazard Zone Conference is quickly approaching. It's October 5th and 6th in Cincinnati, Ohio. 2 days of learning, a ton of instructors, a ton of topics. We've got the agenda out there right now on an app. So once you register, we're going to give you all the classes that there are for you to attend. So you can already start planning right now. So you can go to bshifter.com to set that up. Or if you need more information, you can just reach out to Josh or I, and we can answer any of your questions there. But we're looking forward to seeing everybody at this year's Hazard Zone Conference. And I'm looking at myself here on the camera. If you're watching on YouTube, I got the new B Shifter trucker hat, and we're going to have that available for everyone to purchase over at the Hazard Zone Conference in Cincinnati. We'll have a little store set up for folks to shop. How are you doing today, Josh?
Fantastic. All good. I'm super excited about the conference.
I am
quickly
too.
Approaching. I think we're 28 days away.
Yeah, we have a lot of people have RSVP'd. I know a couple of the hotels are full or just about full. I know one hotel for sure is full, right?
Yep. The main host hotel connected to the conference center is full, and then the other ones are have pretty much so filled up. So yeah, that's always good. I mean, bringing it back first time since 2017, and stand by because this is just the beginning.
Yes. And we will be announcing dates soon for next year's conference. So if for whatever reason you're not able to make it this year, we're going to have those dates out very shortly here. And also we will start registering people with an early bird price right away. So that is coming up to be announced soon. So looking forward to that. This week in the B Shifter Buck Slip, the B Shifter Buck Slip is our weekly newsletter that we put out to incident commanders, fire service leaders. It's a one-stop shop on what's going on, the topics of the day. And we have this series going on right now where we are giving you free SOGs. And these are SOGs that are in PDF and Word format. You can customize them for your department. If there's something in there that you want to change around, you can. But we've done, by and large, most of the work for you. So I know with SOGs, the heavy lift is just getting it going and getting something to start with. And this is definitely a start for everybody. And every week that we feature something, we're getting more and more conversation about it. And I had a lot of conversation with folks online this week, so we thought we'd pop on, do a little podcast on it, and really go in depth on what these SOGs are all about, why it's important for you to have an air management SOG for your department, and talk about some of the drills and stuff that we've offered as well. So if you have not subscribed to the B Shifter Buck Slip, the show notes have the link in it, so you can sign up and subscribe right now. And at the end of this entire series, we're going to offer you the catalog too. So if you're just hopping on halfway through, we'll have an opportunity for you to go back and get all the SOGs that we've already issued for the last 4 or 5 weeks. So talking about air management, Josh, I think starting off with a little historical perspective on the way that we used to manage air and why we need to have an air management policy to begin with.
Many years ago, long before Chemox or any of those things, it was when they did go inside, it was window to window, and they, would maybe try to, protect themselves some way, shape, or form with a sponge or something just over their face, or, some kind of handkerchief, or, whatever. And then, literally it was from window to window, and something we talk about in some fire science stuff now, that tunneling, right? Maybe they would try to stay inside that tunnel, and that was, long ago. And then, the Chemox thing, we've had a lot of discussion about that anyway, because we got Chief Brunacini's gear and his Chemox from when he was on the Phoenix Fire Department there at the CTC. And it was like, they gave a lot more attention to air management then, about what it really meant and what can I really do and how can I protect myself. it seems, than we do now. We have all kinds of bells and whistles and computers and gadgets and widgets and all of this, and definitely technology and equipment is better than it's ever been. But the missing piece is, I think, why do we do air management, and then what does it really look like, and then how do you do it? So I have a few events in my time working in the fire service that I remember being in buildings and working too long, and you end up taking your mask off and you take that breath and you're like, holy shit, I didn't realize it was that bad still. And I got plenty of events that I've been involved with as doing review, where one of them locally right here in Ohio, 7 feet inside the front door, couple companies cluttered at the front door, which is not best practice, but it happened. A guy gets his mask knocked off, one breath, unconscious right there. And they're like, what in the world happened to him? Thought he had a heart attack, pulled him out. Well, his mask was off. And that's all it took. One breath and it was over. So, I mean, you want to know why we do it. Well, one breath in today's environment, it's over. 212 degrees, your trachea is mostly water, right? I mean, we're mostly made of water. When it boils and blisters, it's over, right? And then the whole mind thing, right? We've all probably been in the burn building where you were burning all day, and you're at the end of the day, and I'm just going in there to throw one more pallet on, or going in there to stoke the fire, or whatever, or maybe the old MSA elephant trunk, you forgot to just plug it back in when you went through the door and you took that breath, and it's like, holy shit, it kind of catches you off guard. Well, just think about what goes through your mind if you're inside the building and you get to that position, right? And we've heard plenty of instances in recent times of people being out of air inside the building, or they're running out of air, and then it goes silent because when you're out of air inside the IDLH, you're going to die. And that's how the article started. And I know it's kind of harsh, and some people said something to me about that, but it's the truth. I mean, how long can you hold your breath? So no different than divers consider, I can't dive any longer than I have air for. So when we dive through that front door as firefighters, we need to be thinking about, how long can I really work? And did I have to give myself time to be able to get outside the building? So I know I jumped from the history thing like right into it because I got a lot of passion and interest about this, because our industry seems to be struggling with this whole air management thing. And we think that accidental success is success. And incidents, you hear it on YouTube, you hear it on real incidents. You don't have to look far to hear the people think it's just normal that the low air alarm is going off on the fire ground. And it's like, no, we've created this monster that it's okay for that to happen. And then people come out all the time with their low air alarm going off, and it works until it doesn't. And the time to figure it out isn't when you're having that, oh shit, I'm out of air now. So, I mean, that's what the whole air management piece was about, and the whole SOG. I mean, we have to do better industry wide. I think training our people. What do those lights really mean? How long does your air really last? It's smoke and mirrors. People say 15 minutes, 17 minutes. Well, we got a top 10 size fire department in the country right now that has been sharing a ton of data with us. And the average work time for their crew, by the time they get to 50% on a 4,500 pound cylinder, the average work time is under 6 minutes. So and they're not, well, a whole nother problem. They identified that people are not filling their bottle. So the average starting pressure they're starting with is like 4,200. So they're not even starting with a full bottle. And we're seeing that too. I've seen some people's air management SOGs. As long as your bottle has more than 4,100 in it, it's okay. Well, that 400 pounds to 4,500, how much time is that? I mean, I'm going to ask everybody on here, and it's going to listen to that question. How much time is 400 pounds in your 4,500 pound cylinder? Like how long is that for you? Because, if it's 2, 3, 4 minutes, well, 2, 3, 4 minutes of additional air before you're out of air, it matters, right? I mean, it's a whole mind frame and culture and training and expectations and yeah, there's more to it than people think about when it comes to air management.
In your article, which was excellent, that you wrote as a companion piece to the SOG that you put out this week, you said on top of this thing, two things keep us alive inside a burning building if we are operating in the correct strategy. That's water on the fire and air on our backs. It is absolute risk management for us to have air management, isn't it?
100%. I mean, we can't do our job if we don't have air. We can't help anybody else if we can't help ourselves. So part of the whole air thing is we equip ourselves with this personal protective equipment. And not to digress or get on something totally different, but we ask so many times, what's the real capability of your turnout gear? And people don't know. I don't know. They dropped it off to me and I put it on, and this is what I wear because that's what they gave me. And people, it'll hold up to a flashover. It'll hold up to this, that. And it's like, well, no, like that's just another piece of it. Right. So when I was putting that article together, I was thinking about like, what really gets us inside of buildings on fire if we're in the correct strategy. Right. So, I mean, if we're getting water on the fire and we're getting rid of that thermal threat, then the next piece of it is that IDLH piece of that toxic smoke and lack of oxygen. So water on the fire, air on our back. And those two go hand in hand.
With this SOG, how much of this will get a department into compliance? Well, let's talk about NFPA 1404 and how much of the SOG will get us into compliance with NFPA 1404.
So the SOG addresses a lot of the NFPA 1404 standard. I mean, some of the stuff you have to figure out, for yourself. But NFPA 1404 is the air management training. It's training on the equipment, right? And then it goes through and talks about some of the things about the SCBA and like when we're working in that environment, what does that really mean, and how is the air? What does air management really mean with when it comes to how much air we have and how much air we have left, and then the emergency reserve piece. So, we're the new standard 33%, 33%, 33%. When you get to that last 33%, you're into the emergency reserve. And so many people think that the emergency reserve is, no, it's my reserve just to get out. Well, it is your reserve to get out, but if you have an emergency. So we should not be in the IDLH with our low air alarm going off. And I mean, we define that and line that out in the SOG, but to get to that point, you have to roll out the expectation. To roll out an expectation, you should really have an SOG. Once you have that, then you got to train on it and get people on the same page as far as, no, this is what we want, and this is what we want you to do. And then just like anything, if you want to be successful, you got to be willing to evaluate yourself. So I can't let John Vance come out of a building with his low air alarm going off because it was 1,000 square foot house and say, it's okay. It's like, no, John, we're not going to do that. This is the whole thing with me about this air management thing. We pay no attention to air management, but by golly, if you're late, if it's 7:05, I'm going to write you up. And it's like,
yeah.
It's like, what the hell? No, we're talking about safety stuff that we should be enforcing, right? And if we don't do that all the time, then we're never going to do it. So, I said the 1,000 square foot house piece. Well, people say, well, there's a window or a door everywhere. Well, there is until there isn't, right? And we don't have to look too far in the past to find where there was an air problem that resulted in a firefighter being hurt and another firefighter dying from running out of air inside of a house on fire, right? And then I think it was just last month, a house fire. They may or may not have been in the correct strategy. There was a collapse and it took 23 minutes to get the firefighters out. So, the only chance we have of helping somebody is if we're doing everything right when something goes wrong. And that's why it's so important that with this air management standard and this SOG that we do it right every single time. We don't get to decide when something's going to go sideways on us oftentimes. So that comes back to the you better be doing everything right when something goes wrong. It could be the simplest thing is you're at a house I worked until I was really close to my low air alarm going off, and I fell into the basement stairs, which happens to still have a IDLH smoke environment. Well, you got a problem, right? I mean, it's a Mayday event, and you're not giving us much time to be able to get to you and get you out. So that's why we have to do everything right. We can't flip a switch and make everything in that house, the environment fine, right? If it's IDLH, it's IDLH. So
going back to your historical perspective, that's how it was. We always waited until those bells went off until we left. That's how I was actually trained when I became a firefighter. Well, you leave when that bell goes off. There was no talk of air management. And that was only 30 years ago. And getting ready for this podcast, I actually have spent the last few days drilling, and I went into our hose tower and did the steps on a full bottle. And I timed myself every time. And until I got to halfway, which I get an alarm at halfway and you start lighting up amber, right? It was 15 minutes of what I would consider continuous work for somebody like me. I am a chief, and I'm not pulling ceiling or stuff, but I'm inside walking around. That's probably what I'm going to be doing, and walking stairs. That's only 15 minutes of work time. And you have to plan accordingly. And that's for somebody who's in moderate shape. So you have different people that suck down that air differently. How do we learn the limitations of our crew, and how do we get our crews to learn their limitations?
Well, one thing I think that has happened throughout time is that we have trained people to work until that low air alarm goes off. And then we've told them, hey, you can work, you can keep going even, or we stop them when their low air alarm goes off and just have them go sit in the corner and show them, hey, this is how much time you really have. And I don't disagree with that. I think there's value in that, right? So, in this week's buck slip, we rolled out two different things. One of them from here in Hamilton County and another one from another Blue Card Fire Department. The one in Hamilton County was a working exercise. So they set up, some fire department like work so that people were working at, I'd say, a moderate fire pace. There's no heat involved, but so that they're working, and they measured like how much air did they have when they started, how much air did they have when they got to 50%, or how much time did they have? How much time was it when their low air alarm started going off? And then at that point, they'd have them stop, and then they'd basically show if you can get your breathing under control, which if you're having the worst day of your life and you're dying inside of a building, the chances of you doing that is not very good. But the whole mindset thing of my low air alarm just started going off, and if I can calm myself down, how long could I stay here? So, I mean, there's some people, it's basically between 30 and 57 minutes that some people got if they could just sit in a corner and calm themselves down. Now, granted, that's not the worst day of their life. They're having some, competition with other people. And then, they've tied that back to when their low air alarm starts going off, the company who was in front of them doing the air management drill with under zero visibility does a transfill of that bottle, but they don't actually transfill. They just plug it in with the transfill bottle turned off, just as another piece of the exercise. And that with that, they were just measuring how long does that really take, one, and two, how successful are we doing that? So, that's just a drill that we included into there that you could do, and you could come up with your own information. And, it's pretty widespread. And when you see an SOG that says crews can work 12 minutes at this fire department, you got a bad SOG, because, we've got data from a few thousand people now, all using 45-minute cylinders with the same cubic feet of air in them. And we got times that are at 7 minutes, some people's low air alarms going off. And we got people that, I think the highest one we've seen is maybe like 17 or 18 minutes. And some of that is they're sandbagging a little bit, not working at a good fireman's pace. But it's good for people to see and know that, right? So that's where it comes down to the task level and the company officer knowing the limitations and capabilities of the people that they're working with, because you can only work as long as your weakest link, and your weakest link is the person who's going to use the most air, right? the company officer, in a lot of situations, in a lot of cases, in a lot of organizations, is probably going to use the least amount of air because they're maybe not doing as much manual labor work. They're doing more thinking, evaluating, coaching, communicating, assigning, right? And the firefighters are doing the more labor, right? So, one thing they saw was that somebody that is actually on the nozzle is using more air, it seems, than the person who was backing them up. And I guess in some ways it makes sense. They're getting some more exposure. Maybe their mind frame's a little bit different. They are probably moving around a little bit more. You and your organization need to figure out what it looks for you and all of your personnel, and then align that with your organization to figure out what does air management really mean for your fire department.
Have you ever seen a fire department that has a different policy, an actual policy for a small house versus a commercial building? Or is that just all make-believe stuff? Because you hit on it at the beginning of the podcast. We're talking about 1,100 square foot building, and the mindset that some have is, well, I can just walk out of this building when I run out of air. But when you apply that mindset to a 5,000 square foot building or an 11,000 square foot building, what happens, and why can't you have that mindset? What happens with that mindset? So you say there's, one policy. Why do we have to follow one policy?
Really, it comes down to me for something as simple as this. And I say this all the time and people look at me like I'm crazy, which maybe I am, but you don't get to decide when you're going to have an accident and put your seatbelt on. So that's how I align it at this house, right? You don't get to decide when something's going to happen. You don't get to decide when conditions might change, right? So if we don't do these things basically all the time, then we're not going to do them really ever. So you're talking about 1,100 square foot house. Say I'm 12 feet inside of a building versus 100 feet inside the building. Well, when we have thinking firefighters, officers, tactical bosses, and strategic ICs, we know, right, that if I'm at 1,000 square foot house, that company can probably stay in there and work 8, 9, 10 minutes and still have enough time to get out before their bell goes off. I'm 150 feet down a hand line. I can still be inside the building, inside the IDLH, the same amount of time. It's just how much work am I actually going to get done at the fire location, because my travel time, right? It took me 3 minutes to get to the seat of the fire, and it's going to take me at least 3 or 4 minutes to get out, right? So that only leaves me 5 minutes, 6 minutes, whatever it is, working at the seat of the fire. So, I mean, that's that mind frame thing. But the whole thing of, and I have seen it, that if we're at a house fire, it's okay for my personnel to have their low air alarm come off at a house fire. But I'm not okay with their low air alarm going off when they come out of a commercial building fire. And I know of 2 fire departments that I'm familiar with that have something similar to that, or they have that mind frame anyway, that it's okay to come out of a house with your low air alarm going off. And I've been to commercial building fires with them. And what do you think happens at commercial building fires? They come out with their low air alarm going off.
Yep.
Because they don't flip the switch, because they work, their only notice that they're having an air problem, or that they're going to have an air problem, or they're getting close to having an air problem, or that there is an air issue or whatever, is when that actual low air alarm goes off. Because we don't spend enough time talking about what does that heads up display really mean. And John, you said something before, at 50%, you guys wear an MSA G1s or something?
No, Scott's.
So whatever pack you're wearing, so you can set it, right? So at 50%, that's kind of the pre-alert that, hey, you're at 50%. You ought to be thinking about, telling somebody that I probably have to be replaced, or, whatever. 2 things I think happen with that. One, it just becomes the normal chirp that's in the background, and everybody just knows, that's no big deal. Or I know of multiple fire departments that said, we don't like that chirp going off, so we're just going to turn it off. It's like, so you paid for this technology is available, and you turned it off, right? It just, it makes 0 cents to me. And then the whole heads up display. We've one of the fire departments that's doing a ton of work on air management right now when it comes to, putting their people through some drills and exercises so that they know how much time they have and their company officers know. And then department wide, they can kind of come up with what does it really look like for our entire organization. One of the things when the people are showing up, they're saying, if this light is lit up, what does that mean? And people don't know. And they go back and basically say, well, in the academy, we really didn't talk about that because they just said, this is how you put it on. This is how you don your face piece. You got it all hooked. It's like, it's a disservice. It's a disservice, no different than it's a disservice that we give people turnout gear, but we don't tell them what the limitations and capabilities of the turnout gear is, right? Chris Stewart, one of our colleagues, earlier today I'm talking to him. He was like, yeah, we spend zero time talking about that fragile body that's inside of the turnout gear and that's wearing that SCBA. And what can it really hold up to? And we don't talk about that and what it can do. And we definitely don't talk about what does our PPE do and our SCBA do to protect us. And when it doesn't protect us, what happens to our body? So, I mean, there's way more to this air management thing, I think, than we even put out. This is just a little snippet SOG, I think, to get people going down, the right path.
How often do you think we should be putting that SCBA on and practicing with it and being comfortable with it and understanding what all the chirps and lights and gauges mean? How often should our firefighters have that on their back if they're not going to fires on a regular basis?
I mean, I think that has to just come back to evaluating your training and performance and drills. So, we train people on all the basic skills stuff so that they become competent with those tools. And then in a drill, we should exercise and see what it really looks like, right? So if people aren't doing what we want them to do in a drill, or people aren't doing what we want them to do at a live event, then we need to fix that. And, sometimes it can be fixed through discussion, but oftentimes that needs to be fixed through putting your stuff on, right? And actually going through the motions. I know fire departments that will not make a first due fire in their district this year, and they cover 30 square miles. And they got 20 guys a day on duty, and they will not make a first due fire in their district. You want to talk? So how often should they be doing it? To be honest with you, probably every day. Every day those guys go to work, they should probably get dressed, put their air pack on, practice putting their mask on, get all their stuff on. So when they have to do it, that they do it right.
SCBAs, I think, in a lot of ways are about confidence. I mean, you've got to be in the right mental mind frame when you put it on your back, because suddenly you're so aware of how you're breathing, how much you're breathing, the rhythm that you're breathing at. It tends to escalate. You're in a stressful situation if you're actually in a fire, so your respirations are going to go up. And to be able to have that ongoing practice, not just an annual SCBA confidence course, but actually putting them on a regular basis, matters a lot, because you're going to have that confidence, and you're going to know how to fix something, or, what it means when you're looking at the gauge. And you're also going to know your own physiology on how you're going to react in certain situations when you're on air. It's like a scuba diver, right? I mean, if you're a scuba diver and you're 85 feet down and you run out of air, you're done. I mean,
over. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you do make it up, you're going to be going to a hyperbaric chamber somewhere, because you're going to have the bends and all kinds of other problems from depressurizing so quick. So, using that scuba mindset, I mean, you wouldn't go to the bottom of the ocean and, oh shit, I got to get out of here now. We need to adapt that to firefighting and SCBA.
We talked about it earlier, and this air management thing, it's nothing new.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it really isn't. I don't think have given it the attention that it deserves. And I know there's a ton of organizations out there that give it plenty of attention, but, we want to try to impact and help as many organizations as we possibly can. That's what this whole thing is about for us. And if you take one thing away from it and it makes a difference, then, that's fantastic. And it's been a long time ago, but Mike Gagliano and a few of those folks came to Cincinnati and did a couple of classes here in Hamilton County at Loveland Sims Fire Department. Air management isn't new, and I'm just going to show it because, they wrote this book a long time ago now, and I don't know exactly what the date was, and that really is irrelevant, but it's been around for, I think, 15 years, I don't know, a long time. And this whole thing, air management for the fire service. Some of the people that got our SOG this week are like, where'd this whole air management thing come from? I didn't even know that NFPA 1404 existed. It's like, well, no, there's a standard for everything, right? And we've had a lot of accidental success with it, and I think that's a piece of it. But I just wanted to, say, hey, this is not new. There's a ton of great information in this book, and I'm almost positive you can still get it. It's a fire engineering book, and if you don't have it, it's probably something to latch on to. And those guys do a fantastic, class and discussion too on air management and the point of no return and what does that really mean, and best practice and how do you prepare yourself and all of that. So,
well, I think that's a good way to wrap up this part of the discussion, because this is just scratching the surface, the SOG and the drills that we provided this week and the B Shifter buck slip. If you would like to get your copy, you can get it in the show notes. We'll not only have an opportunity for you to get those and download them. If you sign up every week, every Tuesday morning, you will get in your inbox new SOGs, new resources for you as an incident commander and fire service leader that you can put into use right away. And we're helping you get that push start. But I think, as Josh says, there's so much to learn, so much to drill on, so many resources like the air management book out there and NFPA 1404 that you've got to dig into it to really do it justice. So you make sure you're doing the right thing for your firefighters, for your organization, and you prevent something bad from happening. As Alan Brunacini said, if we can't protect ourselves, there's no way we can protect our customers. And let's not become part of the problem. You said it. We take one breath in these superheated atmospheres with all kinds of stuff that's going to kill us. This isn't the 1970s anymore. You're going down. There's no way you're going to be able to help anybody else out. Any more on the SOG or what's available this week, Josh, that you'd like to mention?
So the SOG is just a little overview thing real quick. We lined those up, the command SOG came out first, and it was kind of just like the platform. And then we did, division ops, communications, air management, accountability. And the one that's coming out this coming Tuesday is Mayday management. And it's coming out, and it really ties together and gives the reason why the first 5 exists. So you should do the first 5 so you don't have to do the Mayday management part. But if you do have to do the Mayday management part, you better be doing the first 5 to be able to manage the Mayday. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that coming out this coming Tuesday. And then after that, we got the other 2 still coming out before the conference, Big Box and the EV Fire. So a lot of information out there. And again, if organizations take one thing from any one thing that we put out, it was worth it. Nobody's got to drink all the Kool-Aid or eat all the elephant. Just if it just helps a little bit, that's what this whole thing is about for us.
Well, we're happy to help, and we're glad to get the word out. So if you're not getting it, again, sign up in the show notes. And if you have any suggestions for us too, let us know. Our information is in there as well. All right, Josh, thanks, man. Good seeing you. Looking forward to less than a month from now. We're going to be in Cincinnati at the Hazard Zone Conference. What class are you doing there? You got a couple of things going, right?
Yeah, so Eric Phillips and I are doing the after action reporting. So we've been working on a project for a while now about what does the after action reporting piece of an incident look like, and trying to build some tools to help organizations streamline that, to make having the conversation with people about the continuous improvement model a little easier. So we do pretty good at giving people the attaboys, even maybe when they didn't deserve it. But, so often we don't do very good having the conversation about this just wasn't quite where we want it. And we want you to do this, that, and the other. And it really, the SOG thing launched because of the after action reporting, because we kept having a discussion about how do you have the discussion with somebody if their organization doesn't have an SOG and laid out the expectation and trained them. And it's like, well, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Like you really can't. So, Blue Card is the avenue to train people. The fire chief, ops chief, company officer is the avenue to roll out the expectation. And the SOG is what's black and white that you communicate through, basically, of here's what we're going to do. We communicate this is what we're going to do. We train people on it. And then the after action reporting thing, we can have that discussion so that we can always look to do better. Because if we settle for how we did today and we think we were successful, tomorrow may not look like that and will likely not look like that. We can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results.
Well, thanks for all your hard work. I know this has been a labor of love for you and really a great project. So thanks for all the SOGs. You are making our lives easier at my department because we're in the middle of updating all our SOGs right now. So this has been a great push start for us. So thanks, Josh.
Thank you, John.
All right. We'll talk to you all next time on the B Shifter podcast. Thanks so much for listening.